another user's inbox in SAP, which is basically the home tab where you can identify different items received in your inbox in terms of reports, or you can send the report through email. This feature is functioning, but eventually what you receive is this type of email. I'm going to drop them. So I send it from myself. I put creator.d at email.org, and this is the type of attachment with this strange extension WID that if I try to open, I cannot, right? Because that's the type of extension that will allow you to open in BI Web Intelligence Reports and Analysis Workspace, kind of like bypassing the system. And this feature is not been acquired or purchased by our organization. So I was told by some BI developers that some other institutions who have purchased this feature allows them to basically receive and open BI reports directly from Outlook. Okay, so yes, indeed, if you click on the envelope, you can send through email the report, but eventually you will receive, you will receive some sort of email. Sorry for that. That has an attachment that you cannot actually open. So just in case that you wanted to test that part. So I don't know if we have any question, any doubt or comment from yesterday in AWS reports or Web Intelligence reports before we move on. By the way, and I forgot to say, it's Brian Baracina. It's with me as a panelist. He will be with us the whole week next week. So good morning to you, Brian. He will be monitoring the chat.
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, everyone.
Okay. So
yeah, Daniel, take the box out of the share screen so we don't see that one there. And the session is recording already.
Thank you very much. Please feel free to chip in anything that that you deem necessary, Brian, because we know that you are very familiar with all transactional reporting as well as BI. So let me just jump in directly into the presentation. You will receive today two presentations, what we call the SRM report navigation, and the other one it's the ECC navigation presentation, where you have basically a screenshot of how to do different things and how to modify your report, how to use the different functionalities in the T codes for ECC and the portal for SRM. Quite straightforward, nothing really difficult, but at the end of the day, it's reference material that we found that eventually is quite useful for you to retrieve some features that you were not familiar with initially, or you can even share this piece of information with some other colleagues. I'm going to close my Outlook so I don't receive all these notifications. Okay, so I'm going to start with SRM. First of all, this is a quite guide through the presentation, but we will jump directly into the system right away. But just for your information, this is you will find screenshots or where to find the reports that are related to shopping carts and POs in the portal. Then we will jump into how you can actually apply a query in the portal. Meaning that sometimes you really want to go and look up for a shopping cart number or a PO number. So several ways to do that. So we'll go through that. We can define a query. We can show you how to apply what they call the show quick criteria maintenance. As well, some more advanced options in the quick criteria, meaning that sometimes in the selection options you can modify your criteria of searching by searching range of data if, for example, the number is greater than a specific reference, if less than equal, you're applying some intervals, how to manage the advanced options, meaning how you can add a new searching option, how you can remove the options. Well, everything is explained over here in the presentation. How you can export to Excel. Sometimes what we found difficult, especially for the ones of you who are not familiar with the exporting part, it's not really the exporting functionality, but where to locate the file eventually that will be in your computer, right? So you have to define that path, knowing that beforehand that you're working in some sort of like a mirror, not in your VDI, but you're in, let's say, working in a server remotely for Umoja. And sometimes when you export, you have to download the file and the data coming from Umoja. You have to set up the path so you look specifically, you find specifically your VDI in your mission, right? Rather than a remote VDI here in Valencia with your user name. Then how you can change query, how you can filter, how you can set up, and this is important, the settings or your layout. When you have a list of records in SRM and you click on settings here, you will have the possibility to, in one shot, basically identify the columns section, how to sort, how to insert a calculation, and how to filter and display the information. Okay, then exactly how to insert the calculations and how to run the results in the display options. So basically, it's in 15 slides. You have pretty much everything that you can use in the portal. So let's jump, without further ado, let's jump into the system, and let me see if I have it here. Let me see if still this is on. I'm going to close system, and please, Brian, please feel free to chip in case that you have any question, or if you can just answer those questions through the chat, I would appreciate that. Okay, so let's see if it still works. This is my my, let's say, homepage when I enter in SRM. As you know, you have two small tabs here in requisitioning, procurement. Depending on your role, you will have more tabs on the upper menu. But there is a link here to the reports, and here you will find what we call the BW independent reports. BW, I think it stands for Business Warehouse Independent Reports. There we have several links: shopping cart details, shopping cart status, PO status, PO details, contracts for supplier, contracts for product, RFX details, supplier overview. Basically, the first four links are the ones that are most used, and this is the ones that were working initially, and the other links are not so used, or were not so used initially, because they were not giving you like accurate information from the transactional transactions that you will do in terms of contracts and RFX. So we're going to mostly focus on shopping carts and POs, because eventually we want to show to you how the reporting features work within the portal, right? Rather than going through the different reports. Because basically, when you want to look for specific shopping carts, first you will have to show the quick criteria maintenance. That's important in order to apply the different fields in terms of query that you want to input. So first is shopping cart number, in case that you know the shopping cart number, or you can put the name of the shopping cart. You can use the asterisk in order to run specific query. Status of the shopping cart. If you don't want to set up any status, you just can leave it blank, and then the creation date as well. Then you apply the criteria, and then you will have the findings if they are here just below in the view part here. In this case, when you do find your shopping cart, you have to select the line and then click on the link. Otherwise, you will not go directly to the specifics of this shopping cart. So first, you have to select the line and then click on the link. Then the document, it's displayed. This is a regular shopping cart. Then if you want to drill down and know just a little bit more on the details, because this is a very high-level information on the product ID, the item time, which is the product category, the description, and the total value. If you want to know just a little bit more on the details, you click on details, and then you will have there information on the count assignments, whether you can find notes and attachments related to the shopping cart, sources of apply, approval process overview, related other documents. So initially, well, in the item data, we have this is a service. This is a shopping cart for a service with a service ID, and a product category, and which is the purchasing group that belongs that this shopping cart belongs to. The count assignment in the next tab will give you, see the details. Okay, accounts assignment details here, sorry. And I go down, here will give you specifics on the funds and cost center, whether it's linked to a grant or not, functional areas, or master data elements that will define which is a coding block for your specific document, in this case the shopping cart. In terms of notes and attachments, this is a very interesting tab where you can find the notes related to this specific requisition document, as well as the attachments that the requisitioner or some other user have attached to this shopping cart. And based on that, you can, with the description, you have the link to all these different attachments. Okay, have appendix, different annexes, supporting other documents, and technical evaluation matrix. Well, anything that the requisitioner or wants to attach to the shopping cart will be found in this third tab, notes and attachments. Approval process overview will give you the information on who processed and the status of the shopping cart. Okay, and some other related documents will give you information on down the road how the initial journey of this shopping cart, it's ending up. Initially from this document number, the shopping cart will go through the artifacts process with the documents numbers, lines, and eventually we have a contract and a PO related to the shopping cart. So how to read in a nutshell, more or less, the shopping cart? It's basically what I just said. So if you want to close the details, you click on close, and then you will be prompted to the initial page where you can use the initial query in order to look up for a specific shopping cart number. Or instead of a shopping cart number, you can actually look up for a range of shopping carts so that you can play around with the list. So that's for one specific record, nothing new probably for you. Let's go and go directly to the POs, I think, in order to find a PO. Brian, do we have any questions? I know that you're probably liaising with the students through the chat.
Just speaking now to one of our attendees, basically mentioning that the roles. It's a bit delayed, right? Yeah, sometimes it's happening with you as well, but it's okay. It's only like half a second. I'm not sure. It's because I think we're both in the same room. I'm not sure. But anyway, the question has to do with the roles. They have no roles in ECC or in the portal. Is that an issue for the rest of the academy? And also no BI roles, or only BI roles in this case. So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but we're going to be providing you guys training environment credentials to be able to play around with ECC, maybe, at least with ECC, not even. Okay, with B, I'll let you answer that one then, Daniel.
Yes. Now for the roles that you are mentioning this part, we talked with several of our students during these days. It's unfortunate that some of you do not have access to BI, to the proper roles that we requested. So please bear in mind that we are expecting you to have at least analytical user forces to acquire and property management, because otherwise we will not be able to play around and work with the exercises related to those folders. Bear in mind that we sent out the initial invitation more than 5 weeks ago, so that we actually identified the roles that we were expecting from you. So and please bear in mind, because some of you already requested, we cannot share any part of credentials from our own. So we'll see how that works next week, but you will need to have those roles in BI in production. Otherwise, most of the exercises and the exam at the very end cannot be done. So that's, having said that, on the ECC and SRM part, basically what we want to do is this week is just we want to do a bit of a refresh on the transactional part, so you will not have to get into SRM in the portal right now. This is just a refresher on the portal. On the other hand, you will receive today exercise on ECC. Okay, so you will have to have some sort, or we were expecting you to have some sort of access to ECC as being, let's say, a user that is coming to a reporting level 2 academy in supply chain. We would understand that you will have some access either to the portal or the ECC, if not to both, right? So you will have to work in production for the exercise. If then, on the other hand, I think David will deliver a session next week. We will deliver a session on the basics on reporting for supply chain in ECC with codes. So there will be demos in case that you don't have access for whatever reason to ECC or those T codes. Then we'll see how we can just work in pairs or use kind of like a group methodology. We'll see, but it's important that at least you have the roles in BI up and running, because otherwise most of the exercises will be focusing on BI. Okay, but do not worry about the SRM part, the portal part. This is just a refresher. The ECC is a refresher, but it will be great if you can have access in production to the list of T codes that will be provided to you. I mean, we're talking about T codes in inventory and T codes in especially for doing analysis in POs, right? ME2N, ME2S, ME2K, ME2M, ME2L, ME23N, so MM60, MM03 related to material master. So those T codes will be interesting for you to have access to. But we'll see how it works next week, because eventually the parts of the roles, it's kind of tricky in all these reporting academies. So I don't know if I'm answering that question, but at least I'm giving you a bit of more context on that. So as per the portal, I'm going to resume the refresher. Okay. So first we want to, as you can see, that we have 2 links to the details on shopping carts and then the status. Basically, more or less, we're talking about the same type of reports. Okay, giving you the same details on shopping carts. The same will be applicable for POs. I'm going to go to launch the PO order status report. Again, it's pretty much the same drill over here. You will have basically a query. This query, it's kind of like aligned to a T code, right? In a way, when you kick in a T code in the system in ECC, you have a series of fields that it's going to kind of like narrow down the scope of your report. So pretty much the same thing. We can actually run in parallel both concepts. This quick criteria maintenance fields, it's kind of like a T code you're applying in order to come up with a list of records, right? So you can either find a specific PO number, or you can just look for a specific range of time, or supplier, or purchasing group, or status as well, right? In the status, we have all the status for related to the POs, time frame in terms of creation, from to, and even the process type. It's available for you. So again, pretty much the same field that we were saying before. This case, I already looked up for this PO number, right? So as I said, always once you find the PO, you have to select on the line and then click on the link. And then you'll see the document number specifically for that PO, right? In terms of details, you have one line, you have several lines for that PO. Okay, so all the lines will be appearing down in the bottom part of the screen, and then you can go drill down, clicking on details in order to see for that specific line item of the PO, which is the general information in terms of product ID, product category, price and conditions. Again, the account assignment, very, very important as well. Notes and attachments. The approval preview with the different processors who have taken some sort of action to this PO, right? Related documents. Okay, and here you can find actually the shopping cart linked and contract linked to this PO as well. So the approval, if I go in the upper approval here, so we have different sequence, and this sequence, as you go on, will give you information on kind of like the history of this document itself, with the dates and who processed or who took action to this PO. In this case, it was recalled, then the document was revised by a processor and then approved by other two processors. So and I think I'm going to see whether I can export this part, because I'm going to show you, if I click here on export, because in the portal it's sometimes it's not you don't receive the same access, the same type of Excel file depending on where you click. So I click here in export. You can export only a PO or a set of POs depending of whether you have one or several other records. And then we'll have an overview in Excel of that particular screen. Okay, so if I click here on the expand, I will have here information on the different pieces of information that I see in my screen, initially in SRM. Okay, so you export directly, and you can open up directly the document without even saving in your own computer. That's from the header point of view. Then you have from the item point of view, you can expand the information. And then at the end, you have some sort of a template and information that you can find related to this PO. Okay, so that's kind of like how you can export initially the information of a specific PO. Not really difficult. So let me close this part, and let me go directly to let's create or let's get up a list of records instead of a particular one. So always be familiar with this. With the screens here, let me see, because initially if you keep closing some of these Internet Explorer different tabs that will be appearing as you follow in the different buttons in the portal, sometimes you don't realize and you keep closing, and then you close, which is the main page where you can find the different reports. So I'm going to go to the shopping cart status. Okay, and I'm going to search for the ones waiting for approval. So I'm going to erase this shopping cart number, status, awaiting approval, and for the last 7 days. Do you have any? I think we may have a question. Yes.
Yes, Daniel, we do. In this case, it's Safwan. If you wish to speak up, I can unmute you. Okay, so just be ready. Okay, you're unmuted. Safwan?
Just wondering, if is it possible, if yes, is it possible to add the budget period for this criteria here?
In this particular search, you mean? If it's possible to add the there's an option if there's an option here. If we look at the change query, I can't answer exactly if you can or not right now, but if you click on the change query, you can edit the fields that you can add to the search, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think you have either the criteria personalization. Daniel, if you go back to the screen before, and I think at the same time somebody else is asking another question here. We'll get to that in a second. There's ways of editing the search pattern, the search fields in SRM. So you can create your own default search fields. And I think also, Sayed, you also raised your hands. I'm going to get to you in a second. Okay, so if you see, Daniel, now that you have that query there, and instead of the change query, you can probably either personalize or define query. Click on personalize and see, I believe we can make some changes there. Okay, so under this one, we have the new layout, and we can search for personalize view instead. And we should have a row there that allows us to add different views. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you can actually search by budget period right now because we haven't accessed it in a while, but we'll take a look at that one and probably get back to you if we can add that one, Safwan, okay? But thanks for the question.
Thank you very much.
All right.
On the other hand, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, we can actually play around with the creation date as well, right? And align it to the budget period itself, right?
Yes, exactly. But I know that you could add some different fields there, and I just didn't remember that one. But we'll take a look at it later and see if we can do so. Sayed, I'm unmuting you. I know you had a question as well. Sayed? Okay, Sayed, you're unmuted. If you have a question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Very low, but yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. I think, you have already responded. When Randall was trying to search for that particular period, he said 7 days. So I was only suggesting that just that date and shop cart number with that query for that one was 7. That's what I wanted to. That was.
All right. Well, thank you, Sayed. Yes, definitely. Okay, and it's very important, just in case if the other attendees haven't heard you in the background, because it was quite low. It's true, if you add a time frame of 7 days and then you add a creation date, so be careful what you're adding to these fields, because of course one will conflict with the other and the search results may not appear. Okay, so always be careful of what you have in your fields. If they're populated with information, you're going to be limiting your search possibilities. And we also have in the chat, I believe there's a couple of comments made here. And let me just go through, because in a minute there were a ton of attendees writing things here. So we have, okay, a couple of things. You need to remove the shopping cart number. Sayed, okay, thank you. Sasha's responded, not possible. I guess that's from the answer of searching by budget period. Okay, and we can take his word for that. Anyway, we'll check later on, but if Sasha, I believe, is saying not possible, it's probably the case. And then Oronto is saying, can we take the details of each PO when the export is made on the query result list? Can we take the details of each PO? Okay, so meaning if they're visible, the details are visible of each PO when we export it like Daniel did? Well, if you realize, I believe if the Excel is still open, when you export it, the tabs at the bottom, like item details, I don't know if it was there because you exported the header, right? You didn't export the below lines. Okay, but I think there is the, right there, no? You have the...
Yes. When you export the document, you export the header in the first sheet, and then the items will be in the following one. Each line item, it's here with the item. That's the first one. That's another one, and then the header is in the first sheet.
Okay, but I think maybe Oronto is referring to the tabs below where it says item details, account assignment, delivery address. Okay, so we'll take a look at that one. You're doing that live now, right? I'm going to keep looking at some of the other questions here.
So I'm going to the details. In this case, it's a shopping cart. Exactly. Let's see here. So maybe you meant like exporting this part from the details.
I believe he hasn't added any more details on that question, but I believe you can only view the header details that you have shown here. Sasha is also writing in the chat and saying basic details only as well.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one of those functionalities that personally I don't tend to use because, of course, our connection is better, so we usually just work with what we have there in the reports. But it's definitely something worth looking into if there's a possibility. But again, thanks, Sasha, for participating in the chat. I'm not sure, can you guys still hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Well.
Only basic details. And based on the Excel you extracted, that's all we could see, just basic detail lines there. And again, people are also commenting on the budget period question and mentioning the same thing we were talking about. If we can't add the field for budget period, which we realized we couldn't, we'll still take a look at it anyway. Of course, using the date ranges from 1 July to 30 June would be, option B. Okay, thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your questions and the comments as well. So what I did is basically I looked at for the shopping carts awaiting approval for the last 7 days. So you have a list of records. As you scroll down, you see that a pop-up message appears on the right upper panel saying that I have around 89 records. So that would be the number of lines that the system finds as per this initial criteria of search. You can always sort the different columns by clicking on the header of each of the columns. So you can sort in descending or ascending order. Shopping cart name as well. Status will be the same because it's awaiting approval. It's in this initial query, and then the creation date as well. If you want to go and even explore just a little bit on the filter, you see this panel on the right side panel. This panel will give you access to a filtering, which basically it's adding an extra line on the top part, just below the header, where you can just look up for a specific term. If we're going to filter by shopping cart name, and we can put here unsos, for example. Oh, sorry. Keyword. Sometimes it's doing these weird things. I don't want to debug anything. Okay, so again, let me filter. And look for something related to unsos, for example. And if I put unsos and then asterisk, the system will retrieve, in this case, has retrieved 4 shopping cart numbers and the ones related to unsos. So where the shopping cart name has the word unsos and then some other concepts, in this case, the PD contract, in this case, and some other information in terms of description, then is retrieving, in this case, 4 records, you see? Then I have information on the creation date over here and who changed each of these shopping carts. Obviously, if you have some other, let's say, features besides the funnel, which is the settings, okay, dialog. So you can actually play the filter not only for the shopping cart name, but shopping cart number. And if you want to retrieve the original number of records, you just delete the filtering condition and then click on enter, and then you'll retrieve the initial bunch of records. If you want, and this is important because in a list of records in the portal, if you do want to modify the layout initially that you see here in the bottom page with the different columns, and save that layout specifically for your search, because that's something that you will be doing basically on a daily basis. So you can modify and customize the layout of your report by clicking on the settings, and there you will have different preferences that you can apply to your report. First, you have a list of all displayed columns and the ones hidden. You see in this case that there is no hidden columns, but you can always select displayed columns, like for example approval time, and remove it from originally, currency, in case that it's not important for you, and even the creation date, for example. So in let's say in 3 clicks you removed the columns that you don't want, but if you just move on to the following tabs like sort, there you will be able to from the columns that are displayed in your reports, you will be able to sort those columns automatically. For example, approval or shopping cart number, for example, you select the shopping cart number, you add, and then you will be able to identify or define the sorting ascending or descending, and not only in one column, but as well in some others as well. So let's say that we want these 2 columns, shopping cart number and status of that shopping cart, one sorted in descending order, the other in ascending order. Remember that we identified the columns that we wanted to be visible in our report, so we hide 3 of them. We sorted 2 columns. You can even insert a calculation. For example, well, in this case, the system is giving you that you have 2 columns that are subject to be calculated. First one is total value, where you can put the total value of the shopping cart, minimum, maximum value. So let's put the total and change that as well. That's let's say that we don't want to modify the second column, but we just want to put a total value in our report. We move on to the next one, filter, in case that you want any column to be filtered at some point, right? For example, status, you can add, and then you set up your filtering criteria there. And I don't know what happened there. Okay, thank you very much. I think they closed the report. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I have to start all over again. So let me go to report.
Sorry, Daniel, you're in production right now? Just I didn't realize when you logged in. Okay, and you were just showing students the shopping cart status, correct? Okay, and before you even started, you mentioned that shopping cart details, shopping cart status, that there was barely any difference between the two. Since now you went into the status just briefly, and it's also something Sasha is commenting in the chat, it's interesting for students to understand the difference. If you click on the shopping cart details one this time around, students will see the difference now in the report that is displayed when you apply your search. You'll see that why it's called shopping cart details, right? The other one is focused on the status, right? Awaiting approval, approved, and so on. Details is focused more on exactly that, right? The details of what's in the shopping cart. So you can even get to see the line items, all right? So there's more details in that shopping cart report. And it's one of the things that Sasha was just commenting in the chat as well, so I thought it was a good moment to come in now that the system crashed on you. What better moment than that, okay?
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Yes. So what I did is I'm applying the criteria in terms of creation, in this case shopping cart detail. So you see that the refresh is running at 99%. So eventually I'll get a list of records, and we will be able to resume the part of customizing our report. So the good thing about this is you customize once, you can save that customization, give a name to that, and then you can apply that same customization to some other list of items that you can create in the future. Okay, so this is refresh still running. So I don't know, let me just, I think I'm going to leave it running for the moment because it's taking some time, or even close it, or maybe in the PO status there. Okay, let me just, because it's important to understand creation date, let's put it important range of time, and apply. So at the end of the day, we just want a list of records so you see how we can customize our layout. And on top of that, I'd like to show to you how we can export the list of records and create a table right away. Okay. Remember, we are working in production, so all the information that we have here, it's, let's say, live. So our transactions have been finished right now. If not, I can just move on to the ECC part, if that's going to stay longer. So I can just leave it open there.
Yeah, the thing is, since Daniel, since it keeps running the date range that is there, and it's quite large, every time it says running the refresh, it takes a while. And also, since it's not working that well, maybe we won't have time to go into it, and we can go into ECC. But as Daniel was showing you the basics of using the quick search criteria, then filtering further, also personalizing your results, if you guys see next to, in each one of those fields that you have in the quick criteria maintenance, you also have more search options. For example, in the purchase order number, you have the multiple selection arrow that you can click on, and that will display a new window that you can filter further in your search. The same thing happens with other fields like purchasing organization, purchasing group, supplier. If you click on those fields, you'll see a matchbox. Click on that matchbox, that will open a new window that will allow you to filter even further. So at least SRM allows you to, if you don't know the exact details of what you're searching for, to have other options in other description fields that you can work with to find the results that you want. Okay, and summarize your search.
Exactly. It's basically what I did is I went into the presentation and I identified the slide that probably you're mentioned here when you have the multiple selection part, and then from the multiple selection you can select or even exclude a range of records as well, right? So it pretty much works like ECC. There we go. So let's see, we have the final list at least. So yes, we have the a list of records in this case for POs. Remember that I clicked on settings. There identifies some columns that I wanted to remove. So just remove one. Some columns that I wanted to sort. I can insert a calculation here in total value, and I put the total value of the POs. I can add a filter, or I can just play around with the display. So we will have the number of rows that by default will be displayed. So we can change from 20 to 30, for example, and then we can play around with the graphics and some other settings as per the table. So we'll have to click first and apply, right? So I'm applying this layout and then clicking OK. Exactly. So like that. Let me see that here. Let me go all the way to the top. So here I'm just applied, let's say, I don't know. Okay, in this case, become all yellow, and then we have here a drop down where I can actually identify each of the different records. I don't know if I can just collapse all one in one shot. Let me see if I can just go all the way down like ECC. Okay. So yes, well, basically,
Okay.
yeah, a custom. Probably, I was just trying to randomly going and doing the display. Probably I didn't. I click here something that in the display port.
And you could always just reset the properties you just added and at least get rid of that. It didn't come out as you expected. And also the results, just I know these are basic things, but anyway, once you have the result like Daniel has now, you can also manually click on each of the columns and drag and drop them right manually if you want something to the right or to the left. Because you're not happy with the way it's displayed, you can just do that manually, like Daniel is doing now, and moving columns up and down, also sorting them. There's also a way, if I'm not mistaken, if you click on one of those columns and you right-click on any of the columns you're searching for, it should also offer you some other settings, right? Like this user settings or display quick help. I think if you click on the user settings, there should be another pop-up window that allows you to filter further. Okay, so you see before the same window you had before, now in each column it also opens up a new window like this one, and I believe it either displays the same options or in some cases it can display different types of options, right, that you can work for. So basically just different ways of doing the same thing.
Thank you, Brian. So yes, eventually you can play around with the layout, filtering, the sorting, and you can save that layout and then apply that layout further down in some other search. So let me just explain to you the part of exporting to Excel, because eventually that's something that you guys are very familiar and you do on a daily basis. But always, that's something that I'm accustomed, which is to create tables automatically from a set of records that I export to Excel. So I'd say this is my original list of POs with a lot of information there. The good thing, and remember that on the contrary here, I don't have any rows that is blanked. So if I go all the way to the bottom here, all the way to the bottom in Excel, I can see that I don't have any blank space. So if I click anywhere in my report where there is some data and I click Control-T, automatically the system will understand that the whole range of records are subject to be converted into a table. So I click in OK, and then automatically you see that the table is being created with all the predefined filtering options. And moreover, if you go all the way to the bottom, and this is the part of the value, and I, for example, click on total value there, and I white up just a little bit this column. This is the total value of all the POs, right? You see that as I clicked the total value, I inserted an auto sum. Automatically, as I created a table, I have a drop-down option where I can not only have information on the total value, but the average amount of each of these POs, which is the maximum number, which is the minimum number. Excuse me, the minimum number. I cannot catch that one. Okay, because it's 0. And and even the count, in this case 6,162 different POs as per my initial query. But this is not only applicable to the total value, because if you just click on the last row, the drop-down will be appearing there, and then you will be able to count, create averages, and stuff like that. So always kind of, especially for the portal and even the ECC part, when you export to Excel, you do have the list of records with no blank spaces, so you can create a table knowing for sure that you have the overall list of records now subject to be analyzed in Excel. I heard a beep. Maybe someone is wants to ask a question.
Yeah, just didn't want to interrupt there. But first, Marius in the chat is asking if you could kindly repeat how you get the total number, as you just showed in the Excel. And you can show that first, and then I'll go to the questions. I believe we have 2 questions. I see at least 2 hands raised, one from and one from Sayed. So we'll get to you guys in a second.
So Marius, nice to see you around. So here we go. That's the initial, let's say, set of records that I had exported from from this part of the system, right? I click on export to Microsoft Excel, and then I come up to with this table, right? Quite a big, large table. But I know because I know because we've been going through this a lot of times. But if you just scroll down, you see that the list of records has no like a blank row, something like this. I'm inserting this blank row. You see, there is no blank rows. It's just a list of records, a series with no interruption, let's say, right? Up until 6,000 something records. So I can create, because if I click on Control-T, as we did yesterday with some web reports, Control-T, my keyboard, the system will define the range of records that are subject to be created into a table. And because there are no rows blank, I know for sure that range will compile all the records available exported to Excel. Okay. Range of data. My table has headers. Yeah, hello? Now it's better? Now, okay, yes, Brian was telling me that I was breaking for a moment. Thank you, Brian. So then my list of records, I know I made sure that there is no blank row, because you know that the table will select the range up until the next blank row or column. So now I made sure that all the records are being in my range, or are in my range. Clicking OK. And the good thing about the table is just with Control-T, you first have some sort of format. Secondly, you have the filter already applied to all the columns. And thirdly, if you go all the way to the bottom of your table with all your records, and then you insert some sort of, let's say, formula. In this case, I'm inserting an AutoSum. Automatically, I'm going to white this up. I will have an extra row, and you see it's with dark blue, where I can apply a preset of formulas to all the different columns. And this is available for me because I created a table. This is a feature that it's linked to a table. So in this case, for the total value, if I have a drop-down list where I can just not only have the total value, but I can apply an average, a count, or even identifying which is the maximum record and the minimum record. And you can do it not only for this, but for the rest of the columns. Okay, Marius? So always very, very handy the Control-T creating table of a set of records. So getting back, this is because I exported to Excel, okay? So without further ado, I think we can just break for 5 minutes before I jump into ECC. Okay, Brian? So it's 10:58. Let me get back here at 11:03. and then we will go through a refresher on ECC with 2-3 codes that will be worked next week in transactional reporting, ME2N, ME2K, ME60. So we'll see the different things that we can apply in terms of reporting for ECC. So I'll see you in 5 minutes from now. Thank you. No, I think okay. Yes, I was talking and I was muted. So, welcome everyone. We still have 50 minutes more to go, and we want to mostly cover the ECC part, which is a little more interesting in a way, because you have more features and you can play around with the information more, and on top of that you have different T codes there to use. So I'm going to click to ME2N, when I will find a list of purchasing documents and have a wide range of possibilities over here, right? So I'm going to, well, first of all, scope of list comes by default to best. I'm going to change to ALV. If you go to the match code, you have different possibilities. This is just a way to present or format the information when you see the report. ALV, it's the one that we usually use. Purchasing organization is 1000 for sure. And what else? Let's see that instead of one document, well, because if we know a particular PO there, we will identify here the PO, and then we click on execute, and then we'll see only one record, right? If we want to use a range of records, we will we'll put the one number and then the range to the following number. And then if you do want to use multiple selections, different type of PO numbers, will include there all the POs here as a single value and click on execute. But sometimes what happens is you have a list of POs, and I think I created a list of POs. Bear with me a second, okay? So let's see that I have a list of POs here, quite long, and I want to use all of them in my report, right? So I can copy all those PO numbers, go back to ECC, right? And obviously I'm not going to paste over here. I'm going to paste over here. I go to the multiple selection, and you hear that noise as well? Oh, I think that's a new feature in ECC, that every time you click here and there is a that's Sumo extension too, I guess. So if I paste, you see that I see a lot of records that are pasted, but not all of them are going to be pasted. So the last single value is 23 something. Let me go back to my PO order list. You see that the last one is 22 something. So not all of them have been included in my multiple selection. So please bear in mind that when you do the Control V, you are not going to copy all the range of POs. Only I think it's applicable for 20, 30 number of POs. So you want to apply all the POs that you have previously copied in your list. So let me just copy all of them. And we are talking about, I think, a list of 157 PO numbers. So let me do Control V, go back to ECC. I go to multiple selection. And from there, I'm not going to click on Control V, but instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here in Upload from Clipboard. So there I'm making sure that the list of records, all of them, are now included in my multiple selection. Okay. I execute, and then I see not only one, but I see this the square here has become green, so that means that the multiple selection has been active. So I click on execute. So basically I'm going to have a list of all the POs that I have listed in Excel with all the details here. Okay, so now we can just play around with a lot of information, right? First, how you can create a chart, right? You see this icon here on the top with a graphic view. So this is not available to all the T codes in ECC. Okay, just bear in mind that every time that you have a list of records in ECC, this icon is not available always. Okay, so it's only applicable to certain number of T codes. So if you want to create a graph right away, you just select two variables, in this case the net value, for example, and then for example, document date. So I select two columns and I click directly into the graph. Okay, like that. I'm going to scroll to my right. I will see the net value by each of the documents date. So net value by all the dates that I've have in my record. Okay, so you can instead of document date, you can use some other columns that are always with net value, right? Because you have to have a figure or a number eventually in your graph. By material group, for example. Click on the graph, and then we can change the chart type. Instead of a bar column, you can use a pie chart, for example. I don't know how it's going to look like, probably very difficult. Okay, so yes. Okay, so obviously this is not the best of the artifact in order to do an analysis, but at least it's you can find some graphical view of a list of records in ECC. Okay, well, because here we have 180 records, maybe a pie chart is not the best, right? But you can play around, right, with information available. So that's kind of handy, maybe with the PO type here and net value. Again, let me chart options, chart type, pie, and there you have the pie chart. So that's as per the graphic. Then we do have here a possibility to export to Excel. Actually, there are two possibilities to export to Excel. You can click on Spreadsheet, and automatically you will have to select, and you have to permit the access. Because if you don't permit the access, you are not allowing your Umoja, let's say the server, to access your own computer, right? So you cannot extract in your own computer the data from Umoja. So you have to permit the access and identify the path, in this case the driver, that is linked to your own VDI, in this case in Valencia, myself. Test Daniel, for example. I'm going to save that Excel, and then actually that's it opened up automatically, right? So again, list of records with no blank spaces, so Control T. So you have a nice table that you can use eventually and do an analysis on that. Okay. Getting back to ECC, there, what else we can show to you? Something interesting, the ABC analysis. I think I have to, yes. With ABC analysis, you have to always work with the net values, let's say, or values itself, right? Either net value or the payments or balances, but it has to have a number, right? For net value, if you select net value and you click on ABC here on the icon, there, what the system understands automatically is, okay, I'm going to break down the whole net value, okay, the whole data into three segments. Segment A, that actually it's going to take 70%, segment B 20, and segment C 10. So segment A, right, it's taking 70% of the total net value of the list of records and assigns to actually the POs. So you can say now that this list of POs from the purchase document here, the first one, up until this one, all of them belong to A. So this has a weight of 70% in net value of all the POs in your list of records. So in terms of prioritization, in terms of importance, if you have to prioritize your analysis, maybe you want to take a look at this first, let's say 20 POs, because the weight of these 20 POs is actually 70% of the whole portfolio. Then B segment is 20%, so you scroll down. These are the POs related to B. right? And then you have a whole list of Cs, right? A lot of C records related to the C segment that only count for 10% of the net value of your records. So obviously you can modify here, and then instead of 70, you can put 80, I don't know, 10 and another 10. Okay, let me see. And then here we go. And then the list has changed, right? So, and this is especially important for inventory analysis, right? When you want to analyze your stock and identify which is the materials that you have in stock that actually are more valuable in terms of price and or even in terms of operational inventory. So that's quite handy. It's called ABC analysis. If you want to go back to your reports, you go back here, and then you will have the list of records here. So it's again, it's always close to the graphic. It's not always available in all the T codes, in all the reports in ECC. It's actually quite handy. The graphical view, but overall the ABC analysis will actually identify which are the priorities, right? A list of POs with net values. You know that 20 of them represent 70 or 80% of the total net value of that list of records, right? So I hope that's clear. I don't know if we have any questions. Perfect, so I can move on. More things. I did show you how to export by clicking in here in this icon. Excuse me, in this icon, it's a spreadsheet. If you click on local file, you can convert this list of records into a spreadsheet. The directory here is Q. I think it's the one that I selected before, but I'm going to double check. It's Q, perfect. And then I can put a name to a file name, test3 Daniel, and I can generate that has been transmitted. So now it doesn't open up automatically, but so I will have to go to the directory. I think it was Q. So test3. I actually made a mistake. Why? Because I didn't actually select XLS. So let me do it again. Local file, spreadsheet, this client, that's the file name, test3 Daniel. Okay, and then page and generate. Okay, do you hear that noise, right, Brian, as well? No? Okay. So every time I do things in Excel, in the ECC part, there's a noise there. So test3 Daniel, so I have to put the extension of Excel, XLS, otherwise it will generate a text file instead of an Excel file. So two ways to export: either you can click and it will open up, or on the other hand, you can actually save it. And you see, you have two different versions of Excel and versions of the layout. You see, much different, not really handy, right? So yes, it's the same list of records, but now it doesn't have any layout. It's difficult to work with. So much better the other one, right? Much better this list of records that I converted into a table right away. So although you do have several options to export, always more handy to click here on the spreadsheet. I'll move on. We don't have any more questions, Ryan, so we can take the most of these 50 minutes. So we show how to use the clipboard. We showed you how we can actually put the multiple selection. We showed to you the ABC analysis part, very important, how you can create graphs, pie charts. It's not like the ones you can create in Excel or even in WebEx. At least there is a graphical view of the information that it's represented in the report. So then most of you probably know if I go here to change layout, we'll have pretty much the same options. This is the same actually rationale that we found in the portal, meaning that in one shot I can play around with the columns displayed in my reports. I can sort them, I can filter them, I can view, or I can set up the display of my report, right? So this becomes actually very handy, especially when you have a lot of columns, and usually that's the way we do identify the filtering. For example, if I do want to, for example, filter by document date, I select document date, I move it to the other, to the filter criteria part. I click on the funnel, and then I can identify what's available in terms of document date, right? Let's say that this is great. Okay, I click in OK. Click in OK. So I will be filtering by document date, 22nd of February 2019, right? If I want to remove the filter, I have to go again to the layout, go into the filter tab, select, in this case, document date, and put it back to the column set. Okay, and I will have the list of records. So column, excuse me, the layout, change layout, with definitely will be your ally in case that you want to modify or customize how your report in ECC will look like. And obviously you can save your layout, okay? So there are other layouts already saved by some other users that you can associate and you can use. And you can choose, as I said, from some other users, right? Or you can create your own and save it under your name, right? Let's say that I want to send to Brian this report, okay? There are several ways I can send this report through ECC, okay? You see this envelope over here, mail recipient. If I click on mail recipient, I will have a possibility to write some text. So that will be like the body of the message. Then down, we'll have two tabs, recipient, and this is important. Please do not play around with the recipient type with this drop-down list. Just leave it like that. And let's say that I know the EADMS or user credential for Umoja, in this case for Brian. I think it's Raj, right, Brian? And so I know this is the user that Brian uses in order to get into the, his EADMS credentials in the system. I click and enter, and automatically the system understands that it's his EADMS credentials, and then automatically puts his name and last names, right? I do not change this recipient type. I leave it blank. And then I click here. The first one is to, so I will send to him into his ECC inbox this email. On the other hand, I can send it to myself, but not to my inbox in ECC, but to my email account. Again, you type the email account, you click on enter, and the recipient type will be updated in this case, and the system understands that this is an internet address. So I can put here, I click on to, right? This is to, this is, I think it's copied, and this is blind copy, okay? More things. I can actually include an attachment to this report, and by doing that, you just click on the clip here, and from there, I can actually use one of the Excels that I used before. So I did attach some attachments created, and then if I'm okay with my body of message, and these are my recipients, and actually I'm going to put myself as well as a ECC user, so we can see two, and then I can send the report to these three recipients. So eventually this report will be sent to Brian's ECC inbox, my own ECC inbox, and then it will be sent as well to my Outlook account in the UN. So let me go and create another session. And you see, once you create another session or you refresh in ECC, you will see a pop-up message. Express document, purchasing documents by document number received from author Daniel Criado, in this case myself. Okay. So I'm gonna go to my inbox. It's a business place inbox, and you see I have received this document, which is actually the report through ME2N that I was using. So I can double click. And not only I'm going to receive the document, but I'm going to receive the Excel test3 Daniel that I had chosen in my directory before, right? You can play around. You can see these are the attributes of the message, and even in recipient list, you can see who has read this email. In this case, myself. I know that Brian still hasn't read it, and myself, I haven't opened it in Outlook. So still, you have some sort of tracking of who has read or who has not read this type of information. And then at the end, you do have here the attachments, which is the report itself and the Excel file. Okay, so if I click on purchasing documents number, I will see the list of records that I had created, but with another layout, okay? With a layout that is not let's say, user-friendly, but still, you know, it's a list of records that I can see automatically and someone can send to me right away in 2 clicks, right? From there, I think that if you right-click, you can save to your PC, and you can print, and you can do some other options here. So, I mean, kind of handy. I don't know if you guys knew about this option, but it's always good to know that you can send through ECC reports to some other recipients. I'm going to get back to my report, and I'm going to use another T code. I don't know, Brian, you just stop me if everything is okay. I'm going to create another session, and I'm going to go for ME2K. In ME2K, it's a list of purchasing documents, but now with account assignment. So I will have to identify cost center, which is 10 to 10. Scope of list, usually we use, instead of best, it's ALV, which is the one that we usually use. And then I'm going to use a dynamic selection, right? Dynamic selection, you can find it there on the top of the page. Very, very handy, because if you click there, you can actually narrow down even more the list of records that eventually you will receive, right? Not only you are filtering by this free text that you have with already predefined set of master data, but you have 3 folders there with master data elements that you can use in order to even filter down the road. So that's quite handy. On the contrary, you have big lengths of records there that are not sorted in alphabetical order. So and you cannot look up for a specific item. So let's say that I want to put a fund and a budget period, because I don't see a fund and budget period over here. And let me just annotate this part in red. So you see, this is the list of already predefined master data elements that I can see in my T code, right? In the T code. But if I click in the dynamic selections, I can even have more master data elements, and they are stored in these 3 different folders, right? The problem is that I want to look for funds. Where is it? I will have to click in one folder, going down, look for it. I go to the other one. So that's the only limitation in dynamic selections. You cannot use Control F and look for a specific one, but because I know where the fund is, it's an account assignment, I can just select funds, which should be almost at the end. You see funds. I double click, and I will see the fund over here. So I can put there, for example, 20 blah, which is Brindisi Valencia, right? I can even put the budget period, which is, I think, a little bit there. Let's see, budget periods. That's the only limitation, right? That you have to go one by one. Budget period right there. think it's P19, for example. So what I did, I included these two master data elements that were not included in my T code, and for doing that, I had to go to the dynamic selections, right? So 2 of them active, meaning that I have included 2 master data elements in my T code, which is the fund and the budget period. I change the scope of list, ALB, and then I put my cost center. I execute my report. So all this in order to show to you how dynamic selections work. So every time you see this icon for dynamic selections, that means that you can actually filter in more by some other elements that are not present initially in your T code. Okay.
And yes, Daniel, thank you. Just something that Sasha is commenting as well in the chat. Now that you already executed this report using in the dynamic search, you use the cost center as well. He's suggesting try the next time with the fund center instead, so maybe we can do it again and see the difference, if anything. But thank you, Sasha, nonetheless.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sasha. So this is the list of records that come automatically. Probably you know very well how to include a total value. Let's filter first by euro, for example, in net order by each of these POs. So ways to filter, many different ways. You can use the layout functionality. You can always select the column, right-click, set filter, or something that we usually do is you select whatever you want to filter, in this case the euro, right-click, set filter. So you determine the filter in one click, you click in OK, and then you know that you're filtered this currency by euro. So all these net order values are euros, right? If I want to put a total to that column, I have to click here in the total icon. All right, and I can see that I have subtotals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove them by default. So if I want to remove the subtotals, you can either double click in the column or you can go to the layout options. Let me just go to the layout. I'm going to sort, let's say, you go to the sort tab and you see that, well, some of these columns have been sorted, okay, and on top of that, 2 of them have subtotals. And actually, so those subtotals are those yellow rows in your report that kind of like makes it a bit difficult to understand. So let me just remove them. I'll click and apply. Okay, so I have my net order value on the top, 214,000 euros, right? Then if I do want to apply a subtotal by, for example, document date, and because I already applied a total, I can select the column and click on the subtotal icon, and then from there I know that by document date I have a subtotal over here in my report. If I want to collapse all the different document dates, I will have to, I think, click in over here. If you click on the top, you will see all the information by all the subtotals, by all different document dates that I have in my report. Okay, if you want to know one document date and what's included in terms of POs, you click there and you see that you have 3 LBAs related to that document date in my report. If you want to expand the whole thing, you double click again and you'll see your report like that. If for whatever reason you want to remove the subtotals, you select the document date, which is the subtotal it's applicable to the document date, and then you click again. No, excuse me. I go to the layout, sort, and I remove it from there. Much easier. Okay, that's for totalize. More things, more items that we have here on the top. You see here basic list. If I click there, that's another view of the same report. Here it's a predefined way to understand. For example, here I do have each of the purchasing documents as one line minimum with information of exactly, with the material group selected and even, excuse me, the list of material groups included in that POs. For example, in this one, excuse me, in this PO document, the 2200126544, I have 3 from the same vendor. I have 2 different materials, right, with different short text. So I have 3 line items there. So that's a way to identify the line items in each of the POs by clicking on basic list. If you want to go back to the other view, account assignment, you have to click here, account assignment, and you will see the initial view. You see, it's some sort of mountain basic list. You click on the basic list and you'll see, and it's another way to present the same information. Okay, already predefined. More things. I'm just taking a look at the script things that I wanted to show to you. The sending part, it's done. List of assets. Okay, let me go to MM60, which is the material master. Let me just create another session better. MN60. In MN60, I think I'm gonna use the material, nothing, the plant, MONUSCO. I think I was using MONUSCO. In this case, CD10, material type fast, which is actually an asset. In material type, I have a list of material types. Fast is related to assets. So you'll have a list of assets for MONUSCO. It may take some time, so in the meantime, I know you're busy with the chat, Brian. Probably you're liaising with students. Anything new? Anything interesting that we can share?
Mostly, yes. Again, I was also having a discussion with Sasha in the chat. We're having a one-to-one here, and he's mentioning that probably in the T code you were looking at before, I believe it was ME2K, sorry. Filtering by the, I believe you were filtering by the document date, may not represent the creation date of the POs exactly. So basically because the approving date due to user setting time may be different. So nonetheless, just an observation there. So maybe it's not the best to filter by the document date if we're trying to look for creation of PO date. It may not be 100% accurate. But still, what you were displaying there is very useful for the rest of the students as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sasha, for that. So in MM60, we are actually identifying the list of materials, in this case in MONUSCO, as a plant, all assets, right? And here, again, a list of records that we can filter, that we can actually identify. Let me just go to the layout over here and see evaluation type, whether we can filter evaluation type and see what's there. Nothing. Okay. All right. Sometimes we go to settings and views because here this one cannot change. Here, if I click in information, because some of these reports can be changed in terms of layout to a layout that is not so. I guess that I cannot change that. It's not so user-friendly, but eventually, if you click in the eye, you will see the list of records in one shot. Here it's difficult to count. In case that you want to count, you have to export to Excel or count one by one. But sometimes when you change to switch list, which is another type of layout in the reports in ECC, you will be able to really identify the list of records here. So if we want to know the number of materials that we have as an asset in MONUSCO, then we'll have to export to Excel, and then from there count the number of lines as well. Okay, so as you can see, we have the ABC. I don't want to. Okay. I think it's opened automatically over here. Header, pivot, so 5. So let me just close. Well, it opened within Excel, within ECC, right, Brian? You see? I opened in Excel. It's like within a material list. So let me open again. So depending on the type of T code, when you click export, it exports in Excel within the screen of ECC. Actually, I think that they have been like new releases on this system, right? So let me just click again. I saw some pop-up window. Trust from publisher, and then I will probably see the Excel file. You see within ECC, right? I see this. This is ECC screen, and this is Excel, which is kind of like embedded within the system. Okay. Header. You even have a pivot table already that you can create, or that is actually automatically created. You can put there different things, little description that you can filter in case that you probably know how to use the pivot tables, right? So that's a pivot table automatically created out of the list of records. This is the initial list of records with the header view, and then different subsheets over here. Okay, so from there you can save as well or update. To be honest, this is the first time I see this new feature. Because initially you will be prompted to Excel, and from there you will be doing your work. Let's say you can create a table, as far as I'm concerned over here. Exactly, you create a table in the format, and from there you can just insert. But I don't see you can save the report. That's the only thing that I'm missing over here. Okay. So and let me go back. Okay, you go back, you go directly to the T code, I believe. Exactly. Kind of like lose the information. So more things in terms of the selection. I think that we went through most of it, because at the end of the day, it's not a matter of let me see the list of records. Some list of records. I mean, we're not going to go into the business right now. We just want to make sure that you know how to use most of these functionalities while you are working in transactional reporting, meaning that you know how to export to Excel, how to play around with the layout. So you play around with the column, which are the columns displayed, how you can sort, how you can filter, view your information, how you can change the layout by just clicking here on account assignment to some other view, right? If you want to go back, you go here to the basic list. How you can filter automatically, how you can sort, and if you right click as well, how you can export as well to a spreadsheet, and then you have some other options as well. Yeah, I see the sound. Probably someone is asking a question. Over to you, Brian.
Yes, we have a question here from Safwan, and I believe it's Safwan. I'm going to unmute you if you're ready to speak up.
Yes.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
Yes.
My question, all the figures or the totals actually according to the BO currency, right? Is there a possibility to get it in dollars so it will be easy for the mission to get the total of this budget or something like that?
Okay, yeah. In this case, since we have the mixture of currency, right? If there's a possibility to have it in dollars.
For the
very
report
useful,
itself.
this report actually, but if it's in dollar, it will be very, very important, very powerful.
Exactly, because as you said, this, each of these POs or purchasing documents are based on the different currency, right? And you would like to see the ones in euros already translated into a net value in local currency, which is
That's right.
the US dollars, right? In PO, to the best of my knowledge, in ECC, I don't see a way to transform, but when we go to the PO analysis area in BI, then we will be able to see all these POs in local currency as well. So there you see
in the report level, actually, there is no way.
No, I don't see. I don't know if Sasha knows more about that, but for this T code, no.
Can we get the exchange rate?
And well, actually, saying Sasha, he's written in the chat saying that probably trying to change the layout if there's an option for US dollars, but no, doesn't seem like it's 100% that we can make that change. Unless there's one of these hidden columns that will allow you to view everything in US dollars, but that would mean the system itself is transforming all the currencies and calculating it in US dollars automatically. I believe that if each one of these has a different currency in the original PO, then that's what it is so far. But we can take a look at that, see if there's anything that can be done. And if, because that's an interesting question. I doubt we can do that changing the layout, because that would mean changing the currency, and ECC would have to be up to date with the currency changes as well. But we'll take a look at it. Okay, Safwan, so thanks for your question.
Thank you.
As you can see, Sanshua, thank you for your question. If I go to the column set, I will appreciate, or you would appreciate if you can see some sort of like a net value local currency, something like that, right? So that would mean that net value, regardless the currency in the purchasing document, it will be shown in dollars. But what we have here is only net value, right? So I don't see in the column set here net value in local currency. Because if we had, yes, that will be the answer to your question, right? But for this particular report, no, it's not available in the layout.
And I believe I'm still unmuted here. So, Sayed, I believe you also have your hand raised. I'm not sure if that's from before or it's now. If do you have a question, Sayed? I'm unmuting you. Hi, Sayed. Did you have a question? Okay, so probably not. Anyway, if you do have one, you can just raise your hand again and we'll unmute you. All right, so Daniel, that was it. We can move on.
Thank you. I'm trying to log into my Outlook so I see whether I did receive the report that I had sent previously to myself in Outlook. So yeah, you see, that's the. So this is what I'm receiving, right, from ECC. I put my own name, and then I do receive the Excel document that I had selected initially, right? So test Daniel is over there, and then the purchasing documents by document number. If I double click, it's a text file. That's what you get. This is what you get in terms of report converted from an ECC report. Okay, it's a text file, but at least it's something that you can use in case that well, it probably is not the most user-friendly layout, but at least it's some sort of dynamic display that will be useful in case that you need it, right? Someone is using ECC and can just shoot you the text file with some information, right? Rather than you logging into ECC and launching the same T code with the same parameters, right? You get automatically, and probably if you play around with the setup, probably you can just export to Excel if you know how to do it. So that's what you get when you identify an email account from an ECC report. And remember that the attachments are sent, so that's actually good news. Okay, so more things. Is it okay? The ABC analysis was it well understood? Because usually we do have a question when several questions when we use this functionality. I think it's really quite useful. Let me do it again. You select always a value itself, and then the system links each of these values to PO, in this case PO documents, and then summarizes all the records based on these segments of data, right? So you said, okay, for the A segment, for the most important segment, 80% of the total net value, which will be, if I'm not mistaken here, $608,000. 80% of that amount will be linked to this set of POs. Okay, 487,000, right? Which represents, as you can see, 80.6% of the total amount of the net value, right? So this is a way for you to identify which actions you have to make to a list of records, right? If we are talking about especially inventory management, this is really, really useful. If you are trying to, for example, you can do the same for open items and some other financial documents as well. You raised your hand, Brian?
Yes. Yeah, I raised my hand there physically. And no, because since we're still debating also in the chat with Sasha about the US dollar currency thing, now that you had the ABC analysis window open, if you, maybe you know this as well, there's the currency field where it says euro at the top, all the way there at the top under features, key figures, and then you have currency. I'm not sure if just making a change there, kind of the date next to it is today's date. I'm not sure if we can just change it there and that would change all the currency in the report. Maybe it's a good option. So that's an observation Sasha made, and since you were there, I thought maybe that's a good one. And if not, since you also explained to the students about the dynamic search, maybe if before we execute the report, we go to the dynamic search and look for the net value in local currency, and that could be an option as well. But right now we have the column for net value, and we don't really know what currency that is in, right? It doesn't show.
Exactly. Yeah, that will be the best. I mean, that will be a great solution, right? If you just select the currency, and the whole list of records are, let's say, transported into that particular currency. But I believe that the total net value, which is selecting, is the one, the POs related to that currency. Okay. Rather than, because by default it gets euros, right? So let me take euros again. Should be the euros here. And apply. So yeah, it's $477,000. Let me just change again, so it's 487 US dollars. But to be honest, I haven't checked this part before. Let me use you. Where is use? Here we go. And let's see what we can see here. So you see the net value changes. So depending on which value you're using, then you will have a different net value over here. So that's, I think it's worth taking a look at it, this list of POs, right? Because we can take a look at the list of POs and see whether they are expressed in US dollars or not based on our changes, and then we can just get back to you, right? Because if that is the case, meaning that you change the currency and then it will be automatically translated into that currency, the whole list of records, that will be the answer to the questions. And on top of that, you will have the percentages broken down by A, B, C, and D. Okay. So more things. Let me go back here. So I think it's worth taking a look at it, not only myself or Brian, but the rest of us. And I think because I mean, we can play around with different other reports, but I think that's more than enough. That will be things that will be included in the exercise that we will send out to you right now. We'll be basically playing around with these T codes and different functionalities. And let me just see the Word document that I created on the script. Here we go. So let me just share. So what I did is just, well, actually it was not myself, it was David who created this script with the ECC functionalities. At the end of the script, you have some T codes that can be showed in ECC related to supply chain. So these are a list of T codes interesting for you we will share with you. Okay, some of them are related to material masters. Some of them, most of them are analysis of POs, inventory, assets management, and some other financial documents as well. So I will share with you this list of T codes as well. As well as if you want the script that I have used, not for you to go through because you do not have to send back to us anything, but because I will send to you if I have it handy over here. I don't know if it is here. No. Let me just take a look at the what is it? Let me just go directly to the exercise. Okay, script. I don't know if I put it there. Okay, I thought I had it. Let me see. No, it's not there. Okay, in any case, I will send to you an exercise. It looks pretty much like the one you received with this format. Several points, several actions that you have to take on ECC, especially not on SRM. And as we did, you will have to answer some questions, and if you can copy and paste the screenshots so we know that you understand and you figured out how to do certain things that we are asking to you in the exercise. But will be mostly related to dynamic selections, to multiple selections. You play around with the filtering, change layout, exporting to Excel, sorting, creating totals as subtotals, mostly on ECC. Okay, on SRM we just leave it aside because we cannot cope with so many different exercises in this week. So having said that, I don't know, Brian, if we have any further questions or comments before we close.
No, Daniel, thank you. That was it. Just the only last questions were about the T codes that you used. So I've been feeding the participants the T codes you've been viewing. Besides that, the currency was the last question, and that's it.
Thank you. So I will send to you then the script, so you have all these T codes that I have been using. I have been using at the end of this page, as you can see, is the list of other interesting T codes that we can show next week as well. So today it's the last of the 3 WebEx sessions. There will be another support session from 2 to 4 today, so do not hesitate to chip in case that you have any question, not only for ECC but for BI as well. Will be available for you for 2 hours. I will send to you this afternoon the Excel, the exercise that you have to send back to us before tomorrow, COB. You will receive the script of ECC, so you have the list of T codes that I have been using today. 2 presentations on ECC and SRM navigations. And tomorrow, or even today's COB, let's try if I can do it, you will receive the link to the test, the pre-assessment with the 20 questions that will have to be done before COB tomorrow. Okay, and we will do it all of us together the first thing in the morning on Monday. So having said that, please apologize if sometimes the system wasn't working well, especially for the part of SRM. I think the 3 sessions were a bit of a refresher to all of you, so we make sure that you know more or less the different features that we will be using next week. Because it will not be fair to you if we hadn't used or at least giving to you a refresher on the navigation from all the systems, and then if we give to you exercises that you don't know how to do them live there next week, that will be really unfair to you. So we wanted to make sure that you knew more or less what is at stake in terms of the navigation and what we can do next week. That's why we're asking you to do the exercises on BI and ECC, and on top of that, the pre-assessment. So if you have any question, any doubt related to the practitioner part, to the practical part, or any other thing that was not clear during this week, you do have a window of time of 2 hours from 2 to 4 Valencia time and Brindisi time. Thank you very much to Cyril, who has been coordinating the chat the first 2 days. Thank you very much to Brian, who has been here. Very, very handy to have him around because he knows a lot about the portal, and he will be with us next week as well with David Redondo. So thank you for everything. I will send to you a survey as well to get feedback from you on how it went this week and how we can improve for the following academies. And before I close, let's take a look at the chat, or even if someone raised hands. Brian?
Yes, let me check. I just heard a beep as well. It's Tony. So, Tony, I'm going to unmute you now. Hello, Tony.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
Yeah, my question is just about the pre-assessment and the exercise. So, I just want to know, should we submit both at the same time, or I can submit the pre-assessment before the exercises?
Sure thing. You can do as you deem necessary. If you receive the pre-assessment today and you wanted to do it today, perfect. If you want to wait up until tomorrow, no problem. You can send the exercise back to us, the 2 of them today, or 1 today and 1 tomorrow. As long as by tomorrow COB we have the 3 items ready, it's okay. So it's a bit of, we give you flexibility, no instructions on that, Tony. No problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, we have, okay, that's a lot of questions there. Okay, so that's Tony. I think that was Sasha. Okay, so here I'm unmuting you, Sasha.
Yes, thanks. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. No, Daniel, thanks for that. But, you know, we got this exercise on the first day, and it would be nice just to tell us, should we send it to email address of the UCS training, or is there any specific email address? I ask you also
yes.
about the same thing. It's because I'm not going to be here tomorrow, and I would like to finish today, if possible, and send it. So just tell us where.
Sure thing, Sasha. Sorry if I didn't miss your email, but I've been experiencing some problems with my Outlook. Sorry, but yes, please send it to, and I think I may have forgotten to put it on writing, but yes, it's to UCS trainings, to our generic email account, so not only myself, but the rest of the team can retrieve your mail, your exercise, and we will store it in our files. So please send it to ucstraining@un.org. Nevertheless, I will send to you that email account now in my following email, Sasha. Thank you for the heads up.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And yeah, no more people raising their hands, but the chat is sort of getting flooded with questions on exercises right now. In terms of, are you going to send the exercises for day 3, for day 2? There was an exercise from day 1, but not from day 2 yet. So that's
exactly. We said from the beginning in the VTC, you will receive 2 exercises, one in BI, we sent to you on Tuesday, and another on ECC that will be sent out today. So 2 exercises, besides the presentation and some other demos, but these 2 exercises are the ones that have to be sent. In any case, what I will do, I will resend the 2 exercises today, so you know what we are talking about in case that there is any misunderstanding. And if you have more questions, that's why we put 2 hours of support session this afternoon for us. So do not hesitate to reach out to us or even drop us an email if you cannot make it for today's support session. And don't be so like overwhelmed or so preoccupied about the exercises, as we just want to have a record of that you have done them. I mean, we are not asking for a specific evaluation or an assessment on those how you did on the exercise, but we want you to at least try it a couple of times, the systems that we will be using next week. Because trust me when I say that sometimes we don't put exercise and people do not feel engaged in a way, especially in the remote session, and then they are not upfront ready in the week that we are all together. So that's why we are sending out the exercises. So thank you very much to everyone. We'll take a look at the chat in case there were more questions, and then we will address those questions in today's afternoon session. Thank you very much to everyone, to Cyril again, Brian, and the rest of the team. So if we don't see or hear each other today or tomorrow, have a safe flight, and welcome to Valencia for next week. Thank you very much.